Okay, let's sketch the graph of another rational function. F of x equals 8 over x squared plus 2. Remember that a rational function is a ratio of two polynomials. In this case, the degree of the polynomial in the numerator is 0, so the numerator is just a constant. When we think about the graph of a rational function, we really need to find out four things. Sometimes a little more if it's a tricky function. But those things are the roots, where does the function cross the x-axis, the y-intercept, where does it cross the y-axis, the positions of any vertical asymptotes, and the locations of any horizontal asymptotes. First, let's find the roots. In order for a rational function to have any roots, the numerator has to be 0. In this function, the numerator is always 8. It can't be anything else. So this function has no roots. It never crosses the x-axis. Second, let's look for the vertical asymptotes by looking for any zeros in the denominator. You can see that this function has non-real roots for the denominator, so there's no value of x that will make the denominator 0, and that means this function has no vertical asymptotes either. Next is horizontal asymptotes. Remember that to find horizontal asymptotes, we're really asking the question, what does this function do when x gets really large, either in the positive or negative x direction? Because the degree of the denominator, 2, is larger than the degree of the numerator, 0 in this case, the limit of this function for large x is 0. So 0 is a horizontal asymptote, and we'll pencil that in as a dashed line. Now the y-intercept, which is just f of 0. It's usually very easy to evaluate. In this case, f of 0 is just 4, and we'll plot that on the graph. Okay, so that's not actually too much information about the graph of this function, but it's enough. Notice that the symmetry of this function is such that it's never negative. Whether x is positive or negative, the value of the function is 0, so none of it lives below the x-axis. The function is also the same on either side of x equals 0. Notice that f of x is equal to f of negative x. We call that an even function. I think that's enough to sketch the graph. It has to go through y equals 4. It has to be symmetric around the line x equals 0. And it has to approach the horizontal asymptote as x gets larger. So it has to look something like this. Finally, here's a plot of the function made with Mathematica.